to move on, we have some fantasy questions. We've been asking you guys for your fantasy questions on Instagram and Twitter. We'll be answering all you guys' questions you have. If you need any tips, you can also hit us up. We'll give you our tips to our best of our knowledge as well. Make sure you guys are following us on Instagram and TikTok. TikTok too, but Instagram and X, just to keep up with all our updates and see what we're doing. Do you want to start off with the first question?
Yeah, I can start it off. We got the first one. Rapper Blue. He says, I'm in a 10-man PPR with the best record at 7-3. I can make a trade with the best overall team. The second best overall record is 6-4. I would be shipping AJ Brown and Dalton Kincaid for Malik Neighbors and George Kittle. Is it worth losing AJ Brown for Kittle, the Kittle upgrade, or should I stick with what I have?
Now, I would say, number one, the biggest thing with this question, I would want to say, who else do you have rostered? Obviously, you probably didn't name everything, but if you're sitting with the best record at 7-3, I'm going to assume you have probably a nice receiver too, a solid running back or at least two, maybe a solid quarterback. Like, you're probably sitting at a decent position to where you can maybe take a risk, but you're also in a situation where, do you want to mess up a good thing? Yes. I think that could be your biggest question. Now, I do think Kittle, him or Kelsey, is going to be your 1 and 2 tight ends for the rest of the year, especially with Kincaid a little banged up. I can see why you want to maybe make this trade. You never know what's going to move forward with Kincaid. He's still got Dawson Knox as well, which George Kittle really isn't competing with any other tight end for too many catches, really. So right. I could see the Kittle upgrade. I'm all for that because I think the tight end is one of the more underrated positions. But I think it's just going to come down to who's your receiver 2, who's your running back 1 and 2. Do you trust these guys down the stretch to where if you do make this trade, you're going to have the best tight end, one of the best running back cores. You're going to, obviously, AJ might be a little better than Neighbors, but I think Neighbors is still one of the top 10 receivers for fantasy football this year. They're usually trailing the Giants. He's getting targeted like crazy. So Neighbors is still a great receiver to have. I wouldn't mind doing it. I'll just have to see the rest of the team.
I agree. I think in this situation, you shouldn't fix what's not broken. You're 7-3. You have the best record in your league, and if you have AJ Brown, I'm assuming he was either your first or second round pick. I wouldn't want to make that risk to trade it for Malik Neighbors, who is also a great receiver, but is going through some quarterback problems too. Daniel Jones is going through one of his worst stretches through the year so far. And overall, as much as I like George Kittle, I really like Dalton Kincaid too, if he can stay healthy going forward, because that's all you really need as a tight end. Like, that's not a weak spot in your roster, or if you have Dalton Kincaid. So I think you're fine with that, and especially like I said, you don't want to fix what's not broken. You're 7-3. You should be gearing up for the best playoff schedules, looking to see if you can make any marginal moves, but the team you have should be fine right now, and I think you should ride out. I don't think you should make any big shakeups. I know for most people's leagues, the trade deadline is coming up, so a lot of people are tempted to see if they can make any upgrades, but I feel like a lot of people that are top seeds in their league should really be more conservative and look to make moves that could gear them up for Week 14 and afterwards. So I think you should stay down with that, bro.
Okay. The second question we have today, Caleb_Hudson1. He asks, he said, I'm in a redraft, full PPR league. I've just won 4 straight, and Nico is coming back this week. I've got Pacheco on IR still. Would you trade Nico for Breece Hall?
I'm going to just start this off as a Breece Hall owner. I wouldn't do that. Don't do that move. As much as I like Breece Hall, I think he's going to have a few good weeks going forward and something that's more closer to the Breece Hall that we know. I like Nico Collins even better, and I think him coming off the IR is something that you should be really excited about, and especially since you also have Isaiah Pacheco, who's on the IR. The Kansas City Chiefs just opened his practice window, his 21-day window, so he should be back in the coming weeks too. That should be a great addition for you in your backfield for whatever other running back you have. I think you should stay down with that as well. I love Nico this week. He should be playing against Dallas this week. He might be a little bit slow up to par since they ruled him out a little bit last minute last week, but overall, bro, keep Nico Collins. I think he's probably a top 5 wide receiver rest of the season once he gets fully healthy. What you think about that?
Well, all right. So you said you won 4 straight. I don't know your record. A lot of this, I like to take record in consideration because I could see kind of maybe your desperate level, if that's a good way to say it. Like, how are you feeling and why you may want to make these type of decisions now?
I get the thought process, not to cut you off. Like, winning 4 straight is big in fantasy.
Yeah.
And thinking about it, like trading Nico Collins, who hasn't played in the last 4 games, you probably think that like, okay, I can switch things up and try to keep things going with him coming back. But overall, I still would just like to add him on top of what you're having, because if you win 4 straight weeks, then I mean, what you have is like great.
Solid,
you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
more than solid. So putting Nico Collins on top of that, like you said, like I would like to see your full roster, just to see what wide receivers you have, to see if that risk is worth it, and maybe if you need a running back, because I mean, since you have Pacheco on IR, I'm assuming your running back position is probably a little weak. That was probably your RB1, like that you hopefully thought this season. So maybe getting a Breece Hall could address that, but even Pacheco is coming back, so it's going to take another week or 2 to get into form. But you won 4 straight, so.
But the thing with this is Pacheco's going to be coming back. First, he's going to take a few weeks to come back into form, like you said.
Right.
2, I think the passing game for the Chiefs is starting to come alive a little bit more. I wonder, it could be because of his loss, but I'm sure they're just not going to go away from it. And 3, when he does come back now, you know, before he didn't really have no one to fight with. Now I think him and Kareem Hunt is basically, if they're not going to be sharing carries, then Kareem Hunt's going to get his 40% of the touches.
Yeah.
I don't think Pacheco would dominate the, carries and touches as much as
He used to,
as much as he used to. I was gonna say Breece, but Braylon Allen be getting in the game and things of that nature.
That's the thing with Breece. Like his ceiling has really dropped from his expectations this overall season.
This season,
he's not really giving you RB1 overall production. And I think
the biggest thing, this team just as a whole, the Jets need to just turn it around. Like Breece is having these solid games. Like for example, last week, trust me, I know I betted on him. Like he's having games where he's rushing for solid amount of yards, but he's not getting enough carries. Like last week, he had 10 carries for 52 yards. That's really a good day.
10 carries is
feel
crazy.
me? If you get 20 carries, that's what? 104 yards. So you feel me? All you gotta do is have the offense on the field more. But the Jets are getting a lot of 3 and outs. They can't finish drives. They're settling for 3s. They're punting early. Like they're just not able to move the ball effectively for Breece to get his touches. I think the biggest thing in this question, if you believe the Jets' offense will improve, then I think you make that move for Breece Hall. Just for the simple fact, we know that running backs in this fantasy year is scarce.
Right.
You feel me? And if you have 4 straight wins, you probably have at least 2 solid receivers that making you think like, maybe I don't even need Nico. If I go get this running back, I might be cool. I would say it wouldn't be a bad move to go get Breece, especially if you're a Jets believer and you think this offense can improve. I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
Not gonna lie, I think you changed my opinion on this, because now thinking about it, if you have won 4 straight, then what you have works. And like you said, with Pacheco, we don't know if he's going to get those full opportunities that he once had coming back into form. So I do think if you make that move for Breece Hall, you're really like focusing on your RB position, and that might be the one weakness that you have in your lineup. So I'm not saying don't make that move, but it's 50-50. If you believe that move is going to take you to the playoffs and keep making you win games, then go ahead and pull the trigger. But if you really like Nico Collins, you want to stay down with that, that's fine. But if I had to lean one side, go get that trade done. He could. I ain't gonna lie, you should be a salesman, bro. That was a great breakdown. I ain't gonna lie.
Man, that's what I get paid for, man. It's like nah. But the next question is coming from D Molly. D Molly 88. I'm sorry. I've been holding on to Jonathan Brooks and IR all year. Now it's decision time. Drop him or do I drop Charbonnet and keep Brooks? Now,
as a Brooks owner, you gotta cook, bro.
I'll start here. Me and you believed in the same thing, you know. Jonathan Brooks, who we all know has been on IR, we believe that he would have came back around mid-season, the middle or late season, and he would have kind of changed how our fantasy team is maybe looking at the time. Obviously, that hasn't come to fruition. Now, for me, that 9 o'clock game kind of cooked me because a lot of the signs were showing me he was going to be playing.
He was supposed to play.
And, they just end up sitting him. I don't know if y'all started him too and made that same decision. That cooked me in my league, put me down a lot. But I think that, you feel me, we thought the right process. Coming into this year, Miles Sanders, he wasn't a world beater. Chuba Hubbard, we didn't know exactly. Now, we've seen him be productive before, but coming into this season, we thought, okay, the Panthers could improve this year. They're getting Xavier Legette,
Still have Adam Thielen.
Maxon, you put him with Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen because that's what they started the year with. So we're thinking overall the Panthers would have looked a little better by the time Brooks come in. You feel me? He comes into a solid looking offense. Obviously, that's not the case here.
And he was the highest drafted running back in his class.
Yeah, that's another reason why we was thinking about the upside. Like, I'm pretty sure me and D-Miley, we were thinking the Panthers are going to be a better team this year. Like you said, I think he was probably the most talented running back. You know, he's about 6'1", pretty hefty, he's fast. Like, he's one of the best running backs or athletes in this draft class. Like you said, he was the first running back drafted or taken off the board this past year. So, trust me, I believe in the hype as well. In terms of between dropping him and Charbonnet, I think you drop Charbonnet a little. Like, I'm not saying like Brooks is gonna turn out because I'm on the fence about dropping Brooks myself. Like, I don't know what he's gonna turn out to be. I'll probably give this another week or two myself. This little he's gonna play, not gonna play gimmick. He's soon to be dropped for me. But in terms of this, with Charbonnet, you're basically banking on a Kenneth Walker injury. Kenneth Walker has that whole backfield pretty much locked up.
Right.
I don't think Charbonnet is gonna give you any real value for what he's doing on your bench. You could probably go get like another maybe backup receiver, backup tight end, you feel me, just to fill some holes, fill a different hole rather than this type of running back.
Right, yeah. I know Charbonnet, he's basically a handcuff at this point, like we said. Like, you're banking on a Kenneth Walker injury or maybe him just missing the game for Charbonnet to be, honestly, fantasy relevant. But Jonathan Brooks definitely has more upside. If he can play next week or even the week after that, we can maybe see him get at least already more production than Charbonnet off the bat. So I think you should drop him. And in this position, I mean, if you're like debating on dropping of Jonathan Brooks, I don't think that you're in the best position so far. It is a tough assumption, but overall, like, you're in the stretch run is trying to get the most out your players, and I think you're going to get more out of Jonathan Brooks, especially if he plays next week and start building on that. By the time week 14 comes, maybe you're fighting to get into the playoffs, or maybe you're preparing yourself for a championship run. You could have Jonathan Brooks in your lineup, and he could be way more productive than Charbonnet. So I'll go ahead and drop Charbonnet, and even if Jonathan Brooks doesn't play this week, keep him in that IR spot and just going forward with that.
Okay, last one. You want to read that one out?
Yeah, we got a question from Resident Link G. He's basically asking, should I start? Now, this is a little general, but he's just asking Mark Andrews or David Njoku. Now, I'm assuming you're asking for a start or sit this week. Both of their matchups, David Njoku plays the New Orleans Saints this week, and Mark Andrews plays the Pittsburgh Steelers. So those are definitely two games where maybe they could go off. I know off the bat, I think David Njoku has more of a higher ceiling this week, fantasy-wise. How you feel about that?
Yeah, at least for this week, I would definitely agree. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think the game script, at least for the Ravens this week, I think they're not going to try. We talked about it earlier. They're not going to try to pass 35 times. I think this is a game they're trying to get Derrick Henry started. I think Mark Andrews will be on the field a lot this game because I think they run a lot of 2 tight end sets, 3 tight end sets to try to play action off of that and try to get Mark Andrews some looks like that. But in terms of David Njoku, solid matchup against the Saints, but not easy. You feel me? Saints are still, at least when they're healthier, a little solid of a pass defense.
Right.
I just think the volume that Njoku and the Browns passing game will have probably gives them a little higher of a ceiling. But we are starting to see Mark Andrews starting to look like our favorite Mark Andrews that we've seen the previous 5 years. He's starting to get his targets back. Likely is still involved, so that's something you still got to look at. He's still splitting with Likely on certain targets and reps. But I think Andrews is definitely a good tight end, and I think he has maybe higher
ceiling? Because he scored touchdowns in 4 out of his last 5 games.
That's what I want to say.
Definitely there.
I think but I don't know if he'll get as many targets as like a David Njoku. Like, I think Winston, these teams are going to be passing 35 to 40 times for at least the foreseeable future. A lot of times they'll be losing these games as well, so that'll force these teams to pass more. A lot of the Ravens probably going to be winning a lot of these games moving forward, even if they're not playing the Steelers. They got other easier matchups than the Steelers coming up. So a lot of the time, the Ravens are trying to get the run game established. So I think Njoku will have more targets. Mark Andrews just in a better overall offense, so he'll see, more opportunities for a touchdown. So this is definitely a toss-up. I think I would lean.
I would lean to Njoku.
I think Njoku has the higher floor.
Right. And I think this
Now
is
I think the ceiling is the same.
I think this is a game where it's like a lot of fantasy teams are do or die with their playoff hopes. And if you need to get this game, I would start Njoku. But if you're a 1 or 2 seed that's pretty much comfortable for the rest of the regular season and you just want to maximize your points total for the season, I would go for Mark Andrews. But overall, if I had to pick one, just slide with David Njoku. I think, like I said, higher floor, lower ceiling, but you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with any of these tight ends. They're probably 2 of the top 6 tight ends that's in fantasy.
Especially rest of the season, too.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, Njoku, the Browns will be trailing more in these games. I think he'll get higher volume. Mark Andrews in a better offense, he'll get a higher chance at a touchdown. So whichever one you're really banking on, I think that would give you your decision right there.